I decided, I was looking around, I hope you guys had a good wee break. I didn't have a lot of people turning in Booklet 2, and the people who did turn in Booklet 2 um, didn't quite uh, get everything finished up. So I wanted to take a time, and we're going to spend, last week we had a bit of time catching up, and I've made a video for everyone, but I didn't realize, I don't know what happened, I didn't make a video for the week 4 work. So this is actually week 4, and then week 5 I want you guys to finish some stuff up, and then so now we're just going to basically, I just want to make sure we're hammering this home because I don't want to move too far ahead. So what I'm going to do is, is I'm going to have you guys finish this, but I wanted to make a wee video for the task this week, and I'm going to reassign, I'm going to extend the turn-in date on the other one. Now, if you've been returned your work, you can go into the assignment and you can edit the one that you submitted. So you can still go on and do it. If you saved it or did something like that, you can go back and edit that one the same way that you did because you still have that on your device. If you're having any issues, get in touch. And then what I'm also going to do, because I know what I'm also going to do is I want to make sure that you guys are maybe getting some other stuff, and I want to kind of see what you guys know. So during the week, hopefully today, Monday, or sometime in the next couple of days, I'm gonna have some forms for you guys to do, and I'll assign those, and I'll just want you guys to kind of go through the questions. So I need you guys to go through, finish what you haven't done again, because I didn't get any submissions last week. So what I'll do is, like I said, I'll extend the dates of all the tasks we've been doing during home learning, so you can get those turned in. You can turn them in late, really, but I'm just going to at least extend the date on this one, so that you get that turned in. Okay, so, but I didn't get the chance to talk to you guys about this, so I want to do that now. Okay, so there's also going to be some forms for you guys to fill out and things like that. Okay, so basically we've gotten to the point where John Balliol was chosen to be king. Okay, so King Edward hand chose him because he's trying to make sure that he is has somebody who he can be the leader of. And there was all kinds of things. John Balliol had to do homage, he had to swear fealty, which means he had to swear his allegiance to King Edward. And basically, as you went through, he had to do lots of stuff. So I'm going to go through this. Obviously, you would put your name there. Guys, all you do, though, to edit this is you just type. So you click on it and then type your name. I know you guys know me by my nickname here. Or I maybe should put a little bit of something in there. Maybe add something to it. Maybe be a bit professional. And your boy, Mr. The Coolest Teacher, Snelling, as I go by in the streets. Sorry, I'll stop now. Write your name there. Right, remember, whenever you get into the ones on Teams, you can edit them and send them in and do everything that you need to do as you go along. Okay, so basically, guys, topic 1, how Edward treated King John. So essentially, guys, we have a lot of stuff that's going on and how they sort of work together. After we're finished with this booklet, we're going to be moving on to William Wallace. Okay, and yeah, so I'm going to kind of start doing some things differently because I feel like we're starting to get ahead of ourselves and not getting a lot of uptake. If you're having problems turning in your stuff, please get in touch, guys. I cannot stress that enough. Okay, so basically, as we go through Booklet 2, these are the topics we're going to talk about. How Edward was being treated, Scottish problems with King Edward's and what their solution was. Topic 3, who will they support, King John or Edward, because they had decisions to make. The destruction of Berwick and the defeat of John Balliol. Alright, so the booklet's there for you to complete. If you can, like, if you can't do this the way that it's on the sheet, remember, guys, you can just answer the questions on a sheet of paper. Write whatever you would do if you're writing them in the boxes, whatever's there. Yeah, okay. So, John Balliol was crowned king in Scotland at Scone. That's where the sacred stone was. Now it's done in London, but It was stolen briefly as well in the early 1900s. But as soon as the King John became the throne, he had several problems he had to overcome. First, he didn't grow up in a royal family, so he didn't have any training to be king. He didn't really know what he was doing. Then there wasn't a king in Scotland for 7 years, so all the nobles and stuff like that got used to a kingless country. And then also Scotland was poor. There wasn't loads of money going around. So the nobles didn't want John to be king, and they tried to stop him from being successful at every turn. Right? So King John's problems with King Edward. All right, so King Edward made it really difficult. So one thing he had to do was pay homage. So one thing, if you're looking over here, something you could put in, is he had to pay homage. That's why he had to like go down to London, travel down to Newcastle, to go and see him, to see King Edward, and basically so he could report back and like check in with his boss. He also controlled Balliol in Scotland. So Scots became really angry about how King Edward treated John. So angry about how he treated John would be something. I'm not going to go through each answer. I'm just going to kind of talk through. Edward gave orders, but if you see, right, and told John to follow him and the Scots, and made basically Edward told the King of Scotland what to do. And Scots didn't like having the King of England bossing the King of Scotland around. He also made King John do ceremonies in England. He also treated him more like one of his lords instead of a fellow king of an independent country, which is really disrespectful, and Scottish people were really upset about that. All right, so then there's some different things that you could put in there. Choose 5. The Scots thought Edward wanted to change Scots law, and they had their own law and courts and stuff like that. And King Edward interfered with that, and he made King John. He humiliated him by making him hear legal complaints in the courts of Scottish nobles, and then he would also force Scots to have Englishmen control their money. He was given the title of treasurer, so they had English laws, because his treasurer followed English laws, Master Thomas of Hunsinger, and he didn't follow Scots law, so he had his own way of doing things. He changed the money. So King John, he changed the seal of Scotland. So it was this where it was King John's, and then King Edward changed it here. So instead of it being King John Balliol, it was all about King Edward, and he was even on the royal seal. So he's just doing things to undermine King Edward. All right. So as you go through it, and you're finding these things about, we keep going with the problems, because all of these are new problems. So you're picking out different bits of information and plugging them in through there. If you don't do this on your paper, that's absolutely fine. You just write down 5 things that made Scots angry. So there are other examples of how Edward undermined King John. The Scots thought that he made King John look weak and unimportant. Right? And in 1292, the British Spirit was unhappy with the decision King John had made, so he took the case to King Edward. So basically, he didn't it's like my kids do. Like my son asks for a sweetie, and then he goes, and I say no. Then he goes to his mom, he asks for a sweetie. Sometimes he gets it, sometimes he doesn't. But we don't know what the other half's doing. So essentially, this person went to King John and didn't get the results he wanted. Then he went to King Edward. Now the problem was, as King Edward overturned the decision and basically told that person that the King of Scotland was wrong and that the King of England could change it over. And then the other thing, there's Macduff complained to King Edward about a decision that King John made, and he forced King John to travel to England to justify the verdict. So not only did he overturn it, he made him come down to defend his decision all the way down to England. Right? And when King John told Edward that he had no right to hear the case, Edward threatened to arrest John and seize the castle. So basically, he just said, you don't have any business here. That's a real good reason why overturning court decisions and stuff like that is a really good reason that you could pop in here. Edward I forced King John to agree to the Treaty of Birmingham to void his marriage. What was void as the marriage had not taken place, implied that Scotland wasn't free. That was one going back with Margaret. And he ignored King John completely and sent orders to the Scottish nobles directly. And And the Scots thought this was insulting to King John because they were ignoring it. Even though they didn't want John Balliol to be successful necessarily, they really didn't want to be taken over by England. So they made things complicated, but it also made things really problematic for everything. There was a war going on with the English and the French. So one of the things that King Edward did was he demanded troops to get sent to France. So he demanded troops to get sent to France, and then as it went through, they sent the troops. The Scots would then have to fight. So this created problems for Scotland because the Scottish, if you remember, the Scottish believed that Scotland was an independent country, not part of England. So they shouldn't have to fight the wars for Scotland. Scotland shouldn't have to fight the wars for England. So they really didn't want to send soldiers there, and that drove a big wedge. All right. So some Scots refused to accept that their king and soldiers would have to fight in England, and they had a lot of trading links with France. And Scots didn't want to fight against their trading partners, so they had no reason to fight the French. And the Scots decided that they were not going. I'm sure you guys know how that happened. Task 1, all right, is this over here. Well, we've gone through, we looked at reasons why. This is where you wrote down 5 reasons why, so it's actually tasks. So the tasks are a bit mixed up here. Complete questions 1 through 3, and that would be you, on questions 2 through 4. So you need to go through and fill these out. This is the section where you would write reasons for your decision why you'd be mad at King Edward. So you're going to use the evidences up here and type them in down here. All right, and then here you're going to fill in the box. So take these. You can copy the text. I'm not looking at these, this answer. I'm not reading these, and you can paste it in. You can type in these. So King Edward wanted Scotland to fight along them against France. So the text is the wrong color. So if that happens to you, you can come up here and you can change it. So if you want it to type like that, or you can copy it from the one on the bottom. Okay, so fill out these. Okay? Right, then we move on. Okay, topic 2. So all of that, you just listened to me talk for 15 minutes and you answered 3 questions. I think that's probably pretty good on your part. Even though you had to go through lots of information, listen to me talk, it's probably not the end of the world. All right, so basically, rolling through, okay, the Scots basically had problems with King Edward's. So we know that they had problems, and then they started to come up with answers. Okay, so here's the different problems that they had along the side, and they all go hand in hand. So problem 1, the problem that they'd agreed that King Edward was their overlord, and the Scottish answer to this problem was that Edward brought an army to Norham and forced them into signing it. So they didn't actually have the choice because they were kind of like they were forced to do it. All right, so that's a bit of a problem. All right, another problem, problem 2, is they were frightened of King Edward's temper. All right, so they didn't want to do anything that would make King Edward mad. So their solution was the Scots elected 10 people to share power with King John. So he couldn't do anything unless the 12 men agreed. So that would basically make it where King John would stop being frightened because into doing whatever he wanted because he wasn't able to do it. So Scots basically took the power away from their king in order to make sure that King Edward couldn't do it. So they started taking away the power. All right, and the way that they did that, I wanted to do it in a way that would stop John Balliol from getting in trouble. Problem 3 was that King Edward had a bigger army. All right, and then the Scottish made agreements with French, so that was who England wanted them to fight. So the solution was, instead of going to fight France, they decided to create the Auld Alliance with French. And basically, instead of it just being Scotland versus England, or Scotland and England versus France, it actually became France and Scotland versus England. Alright, so the new 12 Guardians of the Realm was formed to take action against King Edward, and this is where they kind of worked through. They formed an alliance with Scotland, or they formed an alliance with France called the Auld Alliance. Okay, and then that's where we come through and you're answering these questions. What was problem one? How did they try to solve it? Was this a good solution or a bad solution? What was problem two? How did they try to solve it? Was it a good solution or a bad solution? That was problem three. Now, how did they solve it? Do you think it was a good or a bad idea? Okay. And then you're also going to be doing questions 1 through 3 and 5 through 7. So, yeah. And we're going through and we're answering these questions. What was the Auld Alliance? If you were to describe it, who was an alliance between? Okay. What do you think King Edward's reaction to Scotland's refusal to fight and Scotland's agreement with France would have been? How do you think King Edward would respond to this? Because it eventually had to come up. Okay, moving on to topic 3. So you should be, if you're following along, you should be moving on to page 8. Okay, all right, so, excuse me. As you go through topic 3, who are they going to support? Basically, it seems like a pretty easy decision because you're going through and you're having people going through and they're trying to decide who they would rather support. Now, the person who wants to support Scotland, obviously, you think it'd be obvious that they would choose King John, but remember problem 2, they were absolutely terrified of King Edward's temper. So if they're going to go through, if they didn't think Scotland had a chance, they might choose King Edward's side just so they can be on the side of the winner. So basically, when word reached King Edward, and I hope this is what you guys may have come with, if you didn't, that's fine, he was raging, okay? And he sent a huge army straight to Scotland to sort things out. And his intention was basically to just take John Balliol off the throne. Right? So, task 3 is complete questions 1 through 8 on page 8. Okay? So, it's important to remember that Scotland was divided, so everyone didn't want to do it. So what I want you guys to do is go through these and say, is this something that supports King John Balliol, or is this something that supports King Edward? For example, the first one, King Edward has a bigger army than us. So that would be somebody who would maybe be thinking they would be supporting Edward, right? So you would put an E. Oh, I didn't click that properly. I think I pushed the wrong button. Oh, I see. I messed up. Okay, so you would put an E in there. All right, how do I make this go away? Jeez. Really struggle with technology, guys. I want to stop, so I'm not going to write these in here. I just want you to have a wee think about where they should go. I want to stop King Edward from taking over Scotland. So would that be a King John statement or King Edward statement? We must stand up to the bullies and fight them. Who's the bully in this situation? If you were saying that, who would you be supporting? Would you be supporting King John if you're saying that, or King Edward? We promise to obey King Edward, and we can't break our promise. I have, so you're in J or E next to it. I have land in England, and if we fight against King Edward, basically, I'll lose my land. Who are they supporting? I don't want to fight against the French. Who didn't want to fight against the French? Who signed the alliance? I'm related to John Balliol, so I must fight for him and support him. That's pretty straightforward. King Edward is not giving King John proper respect. He's no respecting King John. Sorry, that was a bit rude. I'm frightened of King Edward's temper. I don't want to go abroad to fight. So if you're not wanting to leave to fight, who are you going to support? Okay. Right. Topic 4. We're cruising, guys. All right. So basically, they made the decision. It was split. Some people supported Edward. Some people supported John Balliol. And you see sort of what was going through. All right. So basically, we come into he sent an army. So if he sent an army, normally, kind of like rolls through and had a bit of problems. All right. So Edward was furious and he blamed King John for not keeping them under control. He decided to invade him. The First thing he did was the siege of Berwick. Second thing he did was the Battle of Dunbar. The third thing he did was King John surrenders. I guess that's something that King John did. Anyways, right? And then Scotland lost independence. And then the Ragman Roll. We'll talk about all of these things. Okay? So we're cruising through. Alright, Siege of Berwick. King Edward led his army to Berwick, which was one of the most important towns in Scotland. It was a really key trading port, blah, 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 across the river, and he besieged the town. When they besiege it, that's where they just like surround it and they stop it from doing anything. So it had the town had a strong garrison, and other Scottish forces they just built a new wall around it, extra men, so they were planning on defending it. They moved. Women and children had been moved out as well, so they were just going to fight. So the siege of Berwick did not go that great. Right? They attacked by sea, and they attacked by land. Right? It took 3 days, and gave the people inside 3 days to surrender, but they didn't respond, and they were so confident that they didn't surrender. Some of them shouted insults to King Edward and called him long legs and other rude signs and all sorts of stuff. So he gave them 3 days, and then he attacked. It was a bloody and brutal experience for the Scots. Berwick was overrun and ransacked. The defences were easily broken, and the English had been told to kill without mercy. And between 10 and 15,000 people were killed during the attack. All right, English troops took Berwick Castle, and the Scots surrendered. All right, there's a wee clip on here. You can watch it, and you learned about the Battle of Berwick. All right, so you can watch this wee video here. And to say, do you think it was fact or fiction? So there's 8 minutes 45 up to 12 minutes. Task 4 is you to go through here and you're to answer these questions on page 9 through 12. So here's a source. You need to read this out. There's a source there, and then you need to determine how useful is the evidence about the attack on Berwick. Which one of these are correct statements? Is it a primary source? Yes or no? Remember, a primary source is somebody who wrote something at the time. And a secondary source is somebody who wrote something after the fact, like a historian writing about it. So this one is source A. So this was source A. King Edward tried to persuade the people of Berwick to surrender. He promised not to harm them if they surrendered. They laughed at him. And yeah, so we're going through, and this is a really informative one, but I can't see who it's from. I think it's a secondary source, right? So does it say that it happened from somebody at the time, or does it say it was something that happened at another time? All right. What was its purpose? Was it C or was it D? And what do they do? It tells how King Edward insulted Scots, or does it tell how Scots insulted King Edward? So what does it do? All right, do the same thing for source B, but I want you to do this on your own. All right, describe 2 things that happened during the attack. And there's the description there, and you can type your description there. Okay, source C, how useful is it? So I want you to use these as sentence starters. All right, so once again, if you're struggling with the computer, write this out on paper. Source C is useful because it says, what does it say that makes it useful? And why is that useful? Source C is useful because it says the Scots brought letters aboard the ship. Right. So the second ship ran around because it says that the ship crashed. Right? It says quote. So you put it in quotes and then you say why it was important. Okay? So basically they didn't have the best of times. Alright, so so they lost. Alright, didn't go well. So you're going through and you're answering these questions. And we've moved along to topic 5. I know you guys are looking at this, and maybe I was a bit unfair, and I probably was a bit unfair whenever I asked you guys to do this whole thing. All right, but this is 3 weeks into it, so I need you guys to finish this off. All right, topic 5. So we got basically John Balliol became king. That was what we did in booklet 1. And then he had problems with Edward. And then the Scots had problems with King Edward as well, and they started pushing back. Whenever they pushed back, they decided to fight with England, or fight against England with France. And then King Edward sent troops up and basically defeated John Balliol. Okay? Right. So, action 2 that he did was the Battle of Dunbar. So, Battle of Dunbar, so that Berwick didn't go well at all. They took the city, but that's not where John Balliol was, and that's not where the Scottish army was. So, a lot of the Scots had difficulty fighting against King Edward for a number of reasons. So, the first reason was King Edward. Scottish nobles supported King Edward because he wanted to be on the side of the winner. Because if John Balliol went down, they needed to name a new king, maybe, or something, and they wanted to be available and they wanted to stay in the good graces. Remember, people had land in England, they didn't want to lose it. So another reason, they stayed at home and they decided not to fight against either one. They were just hedging their bets and just chilling out to the side to see who won. The next reason is they didn't have as many soldiers as the English, so they didn't think they could win. And the next one was they didn't have good equipment. So whenever English soldiers were looking like that picture in full kit, the Scottish soldiers were really not looking the same. All right, so the English army went forward to take control of the rest of Scotland. So they're completely invading the country. So one of the Edward's nobles was sent to capture Dunbar Castle. They'd already agreed to surrender the castle to the English, but the wife, a Comyn supporter of King John, gave control of the castle to Scottish forces. So it was one that they'd already agreed to give away to try and save face, but then they decided that the wife, the lady of it, decided to let them in. All right, so they decided to meet the Scottish army in the castle, and the English troops were getting ready for the battle. The Scots mistook this as a retreat, and they attacked. But because they did that, they broke ranks, and they were up on a really good hill. And whenever they lost the height, it's like that scene in Star Wars, that was all kind of downhill from there. There's a video there, and it shows what kind of happened. Right? But the English had only broken formation briefly and reformed again, and the Scots realized it too late, and they weren't in formation. The English were better trained soldiers, and things didn't go well at all. Okay, so the Scots were defeated, and it's because they weren't disciplined soldiers, and basically the lack of leadership, the morale fell, and after that there were no more serious fighting. King John fled to the north, Edward followed him, and then he eventually surrendered, and Edward marched his army north, taking control of different castles. By midsummer, he'd captured the majority of the important castles as far north as Eglin, up going into the Highlands. Okay, he didn't attempt to. So Stirling Castle just handed over the keys when the English arrived. They didn't see a chance defending it, and things didn't go well. Okay, King John surrendered. And then suddenly all the Scottish nobles were telling them how much they agreed to support Edward. And the ones that were loyal got land, wealth, and power. But they didn't get their country. King John had fled north, so if you went against King Edward, you would lose stuff, and he would give that land and stuff to people who supported him. All right? So the invasion exposed a huge weakness. He didn't lead the Scottish army into battle. He didn't know what he was doing to defeat the English. It became clear that his nobles didn't support him, so he just decided to give up. All right. He travelled under surrender, and Edward had the royal badge of Scotland ripped from Balliol's jacket. That's why his nickname Tombed Tabard comes from. So he took the seal off of his jacket. He was sent to England as a prisoner. His legs were tied under a donkey to stop him from escaping, and he became a prisoner of the English for years. Many of King John's supporters were also sent to prisons in England as well. So he was sent in exile and stuff. So there's a link there for you to watch. So Scottish independence. So one of the worst things that came from this whenever they fought, even though they weren't all that independent whenever they were having to answer to Edward, they were still technically their own country. But basically, John Balliol took it and sort of took control. There's a video here that you can watch. But Scotland couldn't be challenged again, basically. His control, he took complete control. So one of the things that he did, he took some really important artifacts of Scotland. And they were like the Scottish crown jewels, so like the black rood of St. Margaret, and the stone of destiny, which is what they put. That's the stone that all the kings of Scotland were crowned on. Okay, and Edward ordered that the Scottish government documents be taken to London. So he broke the royal seal, so that was his loss of authority, and he basically just took important documents that needed to be there. There's another article there. Okay, all right. Ragman Rome demanded that Scottish nobles swear fealty to him. Okay, and about 1,600 leading Scottish nobles and other important Scots swore a personal oath, English and King Burke, in August of 1296. All right, the oath meant that they were accepting King Edward as their overlord. Edward I in England was now in complete control of Scotland. So not only did he just get John Balliol to surrender, he also went through and got the Scottish nobles, even the ones that were neutral, got all the Scottish nobles to swear fealty to him. So whenever they did that, then everybody swore an oath that they were going to protect King Edward and blah, 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 accepted him as the overlord of Scotland, something they weren't willing to do before, because Edward completely controlled Scotland with his army. All right, and the last thing you need to do is work through task 5. So why did Scots lose the Battle of Dunbar? We just talked about that, but you can read this wee thing here. So they broke their ranks and stuff like that. Action 3, Action 4, 5. Here's a question. So that was like a lot of information, but here's the question. Describe the things that Edward took from John Balliol to punish him. All right. Describe 2 things that Edward did to show that he ruled Scotland. That was what we were just talking about. It's right there. You can just use that bit of answer there. All right. And then what we will do, see how we get on with this, and then what we'll do is I'm going to have you guys work on this Facebook tab, all right, next week. That's going to be something that we move forward with. I'm also going to, we'll see what we do with this next week. All right, so I'm going to give you guys this as your, just finish answering these questions. That's what's important just now. Okay, and then we'll look at the summary task for next week and give you a wee, but we really need to get caught up. If you didn't get your other work done, because this is the 3rd week we've kind of been working with this, and I made the video walkthrough, make sure that you're taking that time to get your stuff caught up. And if you haven't sent me anything, make sure you're sending stuff in, please, because it's really difficult to go through this stuff if I'm not getting your submissions. And then we're going to have this really weird thing whenever we come back to school of some people being up to date and other people being quite a bit far behind. So we don't want that to happen. We want to make sure we're on task with what we need to do, because we don't know how much time we're going to have whenever we're back in school and how much time we're going to have in the building. So please get that going, right? I'll talk to you guys later. Get in touch if you have any questions.